Okay, so just stand for a few moments to give you that initial impression of your posture. Weight a little bit forwards, hips dropping back. Feel that sense of overhanging through lower back, hips and buttocks. So it's this sort of quietening down in body and mind, or body mind if you prefer the single word. And then beginning to turn in the middle of your body. It's this area here that you begin to focus on. This is the part of the body that is dropping towards the ground, so that area between hips and waist. Some people make it a bit more precise. It depends on exactly, sort of how you're approaching it. But if we're thinking of the term lower dantian, which is sometimes used for that area, it can vary. Meaning can vary according to what is actually being done. So some people will place it very precisely 3 finger widths below the navel, and if you imagine 10 units from front to back, then it's 3 units back. So if it suits you better to have it that precise, that's fine from our point of view. Either would do, because really what we're trying to build is a sense of literally being centered here. So that this is a major reference point. It's the part of the body we want to feel sink into the ground. It's the part of the body that we're turning. It can even be, and this is probably, I wouldn't say it's advanced, but with time our understanding of these things grows. As we explore this in a landscape, we just see things from a different perspective, and a perspective that grows around this focus on the center is that the expansion and contraction actually is as though there's a balloon or a ball here, and so when there's a movement that say pushes our hips up or sinks them down or carries our hips forwards or back or something like that, it's the ball that's moving or expanding and contracting. Always remember that none of these ideas, none of these images are complete in and of themselves. And always remember also that you might not be somebody who relates to imagery, which can be an advantage. Really what we're looking for is a very direct relationship between what we think of as mind, what we think of as body. I sometimes feel that the reason we use a lot of imagery in Tai Chi is because otherwise we're sort of standing there doing the exercises and our imagination is somewhere else. It's thinking about lunch or what we're going to do tomorrow, or what might happen next year or something like that. So in some ways, if the imagery that we use doesn't work for you, then you maybe have a direct link between body and mind without the interference of the imagery. And what we try and do, if you've got that, if you have got imagery there, then we try and make it an appropriate imagery to bring our attention here. So if an image suggested takes you away in one way or another, if we say, I can think about the wild goose and geese flying over the marshes on the Norfolk coast and so on and so forth, and I'm kind of away with the fairies, as it were. If I can use that image to bring in qualities that I might associate with the movement of a large bird, maybe even the openness, the spaciousness of the environment that that they're in, if I can bring those in clearly to my body and my movements, then it's a useful image. Just letting your body settle into a nice steady rhythm, and try and feel that any movement that you make has some kind of connection with the whole body. So again, this isn't something that we always will pick up on straight away or even every time. But clearly, I'll come a little bit closer to make it a bit more obvious here. For instance, I'm turning here in that area that I described as the lower dantian. That's causing the whole of my upper body to move, ribs, shoulders. And so unless I actively try and block the movement and I put my hands behind my back or something like that, my arms are going to move. They're going to follow the movement. What isn't always clear is that when I turn this way, I can feel a kind of change in my legs. There's a very slight change in my weight between my legs. And if I turn a long way, you can see how it's affecting my knee there. So this, I don't want this to happen, but it's one possible outcome from the movement in the center of the body. So actually I have to take steps to try and reduce that movement. I've talked about that at other times. Point here is that when you move in the center of the body, you're touching all parts of the body. So traditionally, various ways it's described. One description is it's like the hub of a wheel. I always think of a bicycle wheel, but from the times when that image came, it would have been a cart wheel. But you know, the hub has the spokes radiating out to the rim. You move the hub, the entire wheel will move with it. Another interesting image, again, we have to try and understand the context, is that what we think of as mind is the commander of the army, and the center of the body here is the banner. And so in a kind of, you know, much older style army than the contemporary ones, the commander of the army would be there somewhere, probably on a hill or something like that, watching what was going on, receiving information from the front line where the banner was, and issuing instructions: move over there, come this way, or whatever. And the banner would move, and when the banner moved, the troops would move. They would follow the banner. So either of those two images can be useful to some people. So you can think of it in mechanical terms. There was an obvious physical connection there, and or you can use these images, but one way or another, we begin to understand that this central part of the body is as crucial to the movements that we make, to all the movements that we make, as sort of pushing the pedals down on a bicycle or pushing down the accelerator on a car would be. And from that, we get this very connected and smooth flowing movement. So taken as a whole, the idea of the energy is something that could be understood in terms of that connection. For instance, if I get this bottle of water and it's 3/4 full, if I squeeze at the bottom, the level, oops, it falls over, we see the connection, but squeeze at the bottom, the level of the water goes up. If I squeeze on one side, the water moves over to one side. If I squeeze in the middle, the level goes up, but also the bottom bulges out. So again, you can put whatever label you like on that. But the overall effect of having this very connected movement in mind and body is a change in the perspective. It's this quietening down. It helps to settle our attention. Helps to give this sense of a fluid movement, one that is not reduced to one part of the body. The effort, the load of the movement, the weight is spread through the body, not equally, because obviously our legs play a major role in this, and depending on the exercise, one or other part of the body will be emphasized. But you know, when one part of the body moves, the whole body moves. So when we change, turn your hands palm out, raise them up, there'll be changes within the body. It will feel different, particularly in your upper body, but also you may need to just release in your hips just a little bit more. And let your hands drop down. From this position, just see the knees are slightly curved. You let your hips drop back and then push up. So again, we can approach this one movement in various ways. Already talked about the idea of the ball in the middle of your body. So when you sink down, that would be compressed and then expand. Or you can think of yourself sitting on a ball. Also, when the legs change shape, which is what they're doing, then certain muscles will be expanded, drawn out. Others will be contracting. That's just the nature of how muscles work. Most muscles in the body are paired, and all the ones associated with movement would do this. And the muscle that's being drawn out will get to a point where it wants to contract. It's like pulling on an elastic band and then feeling that it's starting to get stiff. And so if we think of this, if you like, mechanically, we begin to realize that on the way up, we feel certain parts of the body expanding. At a certain point, that would start to stiffen up. But before we reach that point, we allow them to contract. And as we sink down, again, at a certain point, the paired muscles the opposite muscles will begin to stiffen up and push up. You don't have to have a massive knowledge of human anatomy to do this, although that can help. You just have to recognize the sensations in your legs, and then maybe also recognize that I'm talking about the legs, but actually there are muscles in our legs that go up into the lower part of our back and so on and so forth. So it's not just our legs that we're thinking of when we start to feel the movement through the upper body, bringing our hands around as though you're cradling the ball and pushing up. Turn your hands over like they're resting on the ball and sink down. So your whole body expands. You can think of the ball expanding. You can think of the distance between the ground and your shoulders changing. And then your whole body contracts. Hips drop down, your hips, draw your shoulders down. The shoulders, really, the thing to do with the shoulder as your shoulders drop is to feel what's happening in your elbows. Your elbows begin to drop, and that pulls on your wrists and your fingers. And just go to the lower position, rest there for a moment. If it helps, have this image of the ball underneath your hands pressing down, that's fine. Then rotate your hands, push up. Feel the difference in your arms, of course, but also in your sides and the front and back of your body. Feel that again, going down. And then push it up. And then start to do it more fluidly again, but perhaps with a better sense of those points of change, and maybe with a better sense of the feeling of change during the transition from one point to another. And then change into the wild goose, hands coming out to the sides. So these details, particularly these subtle physical changes within the body, have the effect of really drawing our attention quite deeply in, and that's a very positive thing for our mind, certainly. It's one of the things that helps us to develop this very deep, calm quality. It also helps to really reinforce that area of overlapping between mind and body, so that your awareness and your movement are not two separate things. And then parting the clouds, hands crossing in front of you. Now sinking down, changing to dragon plucks the stars from the sky. Once we've established a basic pattern in the movement, and that awareness of connection is very much a part of that pattern, then we begin to recognize how it works in the different exercises. And when I say pattern, it's a very broad pattern. If we use this idea of exploring what we might think of as the inner landscape of the body, that pattern is the map. The individual exercises are the individual pathways, the individual routes through that map. One more time. Now, your hands to your sides and then around in front. So you're just supporting something a little bit above your head. And back down. Push out to the sides. And turn. And back to the starting position. Pushing out to the side again, turn in that center part of your body. And back. And then the final part of this exercise is facing forwards and pushing out. So pushing in full direction. So again. Be aware as you turn, very much turning in hips and waist, and never so far with any part of your body that you begin to experience this sense of tightening and gripping in the muscles. One way of developing that is to try and let your attention go a little bit deeper in your body. It's not just about the muscles, of course. Tendons, ligaments, the fascia, the muscle, skin, even the bones. As you do this, the bones in your arms and your hips and spine are part of the movement. And then let your hands drop down, circling palms. And come above the center line of your body and then straight down. So above the center line of your body, it should actually be slightly in front, so it's not back there, it's there. So now it comes down, hand almost brushing your nose. And then add in the turn. And then on the other side. And then add in the turn. And then row the boat in the middle of the lake. Get to this position, the center of your body, hips and pelvis goes back. And then in the center of your body, there's a kind of rotation as your hips drop down again. And that moves your back, your shoulders, your head, and your arms through a certain pattern. And then polishing the table turn, and then that same idea, hips going back and then across. One more time. And hands drop down. Give your legs a little shake. That little way of approaching the first exercise of just resting in one position, then resting in another position is a very common practice in Tai Chi, quite often holding for extensive lengths of time. Really, one of the things that comes out of that is a sense of where you're going to. Again, to use the analogy of the inner landscape of the body, you know, if you're in a certain area and you want to get to a certain place, you know your starting position, you work out where you want to go. You can then plot the route and the most effective route between those 2 points. And it introduces not only a sense of calmness and smoothness and flow into body and mind, but also a sense of clarity and precision. And it's also something that can help you to navigate the more complex exercises. So it impacts all aspects of the art, and it really does help to generate this really lovely aspect of Tai Chi movements and Qigong movements, which is that there is this calmness, this stillness that goes with them. We can get into very easily get into, I could do the next movement, kind of hurrying quality. But with that sense of, no, I need to get to here, then I need to get to there, and so on and so forth. It just quietens things down for us a little bit. So with that very much in mind, starting with your feet together. So turn your toes out so your feet are at 45 degrees, then the heels likewise, roughly 45 degrees, and then the toes again. So horse riding stance, giving you a bit more space for that sinking down. Obviously stronger in the muscles of the legs. It should be ultimately quite good for hips and knees because it helps you to just drop your weight down. But don't overdo this. Moving your weight from one foot to another. Give yourself a moment to settle into that foot, and then move across. Give yourself a moment to settle in. You know, keeping your body upright. So as you move across, notice that have you leant over, push the hip out or something like that, and then back into the left. And move over to the first leg and turn your body so that your body's facing the direction that those toes are pointing in, or at least up to that point. You might not get that far, and then go across, and same thing on the other side. Now come into your right foot. Bring your left hand a point in front of your shoulder, and your right hand, yep, and your left hand underneath. So you've got that ball holding position. Move your weight across into the left foot. Push the top hand down so it comes to a point in front of the hip. And as you turn, swing the left hand out. Your left hand is at shoulder height, or the fingers are at shoulder height. Your elbows above your knee, or roughly above your knee, hand with the foot. Palm of your hand is up. Then you come back into your right foot and you turn, and that brings your left hand back across. And then you can rotate your hands, so now both hands are facing palm in. You move your weight across into your left leg, and you turn to the left. Move the weight into your right, push the left hand down, turn the body, swing the arm out, same thing, fingers at shoulder height, elbow to knee, hand to foot, and you're looking across your fingers, but out towards the horizon. You come back, turn, the turning movement brings this right hand over, you turn the hands in to hold the ball, you move across and you turn. You're now ready to start again. So 1, you move across, you turn, the top hand pushes down. 2, you come back into the right and you turn, and at the end of that movement, you turn your hands palm in. 3, you move across into your left. 4, you turn. 1, into your right foot. 2, coming back. Turn your hands palm in. 3, move across. And 4, turn. Those are the separate components. Now, 1, we move in, overlapping a little bit with 2. 3, coming back, 4. Again on the other side, parting the wild horse's mane. Just keep in the back of your mind the destinations. Where is it you want your hand to arrive here before you make the change? Where do you want your hands to arrive before you turn them palm in? What are your hands doing here as you move across and turn? Your arms are following the movement of your weight and your center. They don't have to create the movement. They just create a shape, if you like, for the movement to come through. There's no straining, no hurry in your arms. If the image of the horse's mane, the horse's tail, flowing, attached at one end but free at the other end, helps with the quality of the movement, then make use of it. If you find it distracting for one reason or another, or difficult to grasp, then don't bother with it. Another outcome from resting in postures is a conditioning of your body, finding a way to be in a particular shape without creating strain, and maintaining that sense of your whole body engaged and everything that goes with that. One more time. And shake out. So changing the stance again. This time starting from the hip width position once again, rather than the wider position. And what you want to try and do, let me see if I can find something appropriate to demonstrate with. So if I take these two sticks, if I get them down there, yeah, that looks about right. So if I stand here, hip width, say, I won't be able to turn my foot out. Normally I would turn my foot out, but yeah. Then when I step forwards, I'm going to step forwards to there. So what I don't want to do from here, actually probably better if I stand on the outside, then it will look better. So there, a little bit wide, but not by here. I can turn that foot out, and when I step to there. I keep the width of the step. What I don't want to do is to step from here to here, because now it's like I'm trying to balance on the stick, and that's going to be very, very difficult. So you can imagine those lines. We sometimes refer to them as tram lines. Or you could mark it in some way or another, and that's a useful thing to do in your own time. I sometimes say to people, get a tape measure and a piece of chalk, measure the width of your hips, not the circumference, but the width of your hips, and draw a square. Because in the first instance, at least, the length of the step is roughly the same as the width. As you settle down more, it may be just a little bit longer, but not a great deal longer. And then just transferring your weight from front to back. To begin with, just think of this as being all in your legs. Your legs, you know, your leg expands, it pushes you forwards, that's directed through the center of your body rather than upwards, which is what we were doing before. And you arrive in the other leg and you settle down and repeat. But of course, as I said, you know, there are connections from legs up into the torso. So you may feel, for instance, if you place your hands just on your belly here, you may feel a change in the muscles there. Maybe similar position on your back, feel the change there. Or again, you could use an image like moving through water to create the image of a resistance to the movement. And again, just be careful that image doesn't draw your attention away from where you are. And it's a useful image for developing this quality of inner strength, which is another outcome from this feeling of the whole body moving. And then sit back. When you raise your front toes, a little bit more of your weight will go into your back foot. I now have my front foot slightly turned out. When I push my back knee forwards, you can see there's a little bit of movement as I settle down more of my weight in my front foot. And that's an accumulative thing. What we're looking to do is to get to a point where really the weight of the whole body, apart from the weight of the leg itself, is actually flowing down through one leg, nicely aligned over that leg, which means you can then, with relatively little effort, step in, making sure you push the foot out to the correct position. Maintain your stance while you do this. And then on the other side, and then transferring your weight raising your toes and your heel. and stepping in. And then stepping through. And then going back. Okay. Sink your weight into your back. Hold your hands over. Pigeon spreads its wings. Push forwards. And as you do, with your arms being pushed out, no higher than shoulder height, just spreading out a little bit. To this position, go back a bit so you can see my hands. And then going back. Settle into the back position. Feel the push from the foot. The center expanding. Pigeon spreads its wings. And then sink back, change into fisherman cast the net. Your hands drop down and your arms swing from your shoulders. Now sink back and turn. Your arms just swing up to no higher than shoulder height. Go forwards and turn. Drawing your hands down to your hip. Turn a little bit further. Swing your arms out. Coming back. Like a sideways figure of 8 movement. 2 circles joined. Good. Shake out. On the other side, Hands folded across your belly. Pigeon spreads its wings. You're going to settle there, rest, and then go back. In my experience, when we start to do this with one movement, after a period of time, we recognize these little moments when we change, when we settle in all the movements. You could hold any of the postures at any point, but what we're focusing on at this stage is the point of change, those destination points, shall we say. But really what we want to try and do is to maintain that quality of stillness throughout the whole practice. And then fisherman cast the net. And then into the figure of 8. And then come through, step and forwards. Still being careful about where you place your step. Giving yourself time to align yourself, to root down through the supporting leg, don't rush. And then going back. And bring your feet back. Shake out. Good. Open your hands together. Tapping over your face. Over your head and neck. Down to one shoulder. And your arm. And the other side. Onto your back. And around your hips. And your legs. Light on your belly. the upper part of your chest. So just remember, next Monday, of course, is Easter Monday. It's bank holiday, so I won't be doing a live class. What I would do though will be that there'll be a class this Thursday, and I shall record that one as well this week, and so that one will go up next week, and so there won't be a live class on Monday, but there will be something you can take a look at if you're so inclined. Of course, it would just be a repeat if you come to the Thursday class, but it should be okay. So come back to the stance, the Ruchi stance, sinking down, and then embrace tiger, return to mountain. And again, try and get a sense for the sensations in your body as you go from this top position back down, drawing into your center, and everything that we would associate with that in terms of quietening, change in posture, the settling feeling, the stillness that develops. And then stand. And shake out. Lovely. Thank you very much. So again, just to remind you, no class next Monday, but there should be an extra recording go up in around about that time. So if I don't see you before, have a great Easter break.